Hello, fans, and welcome to the Utah Hockey Club postgame show with the Two Line Pass podcast. Another great game in the books, and I'm Randon, and alongside my co-hosts, Dustin and Ryan, we will break down all the goals, saves, hits, and highlights. Welcome to another postgame with the Two Line Pass. Welcome in, fans, to the Two Line Pass podcast postgame show, your Utah Hockey Club following another loss to the Los Angeles Kings, 3-2. We finally got some offense, finally scored some goals, so that's good coming off of a very rough stretch of a complete lack of offense. But another loss, Dustin, so I guess almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and we almost won. But how you feeling about today's game, Dustin?
I'm feeling down. It's been a while since we tasted a win, and that's, I think, we've dropped 5 out of the last 6, and that's rough. Makes me wonder what's going on. Was Dursey really that important to this team? Because the team was undefeated with him in the lineup as long as he finished the game. I mean, he played against the Devils, and they lost that game, but that was the game in which we lost him, and they've done nothing. They've only won one game since they lost Dursey. It's I wonder what type of impact that has on team chemistry, what kind of impact that has on just like the changes in the lines and who plays with who. But I'm just kind of stuck trying to find the answers as to what's going on. Like, this is one of the areas where I wish I was more of the analyst brain when it came to the game of hockey. I'm just here to kind of like help transition fans from other sports to hockey. Like, I have a decent grasp on the game, but not enough to break it down, like the X's and O's specifically. I can't see what's going on other than the fact that the scoring chances that Utah is creating, they're just not capitalizing on. Like, I feel like they're there. I feel like they're playing well enough, but the puck just hasn't been able to find the back of the net. And I'm almost kind of at a loss for what to say and how to explain this.
Well, hopefully they've got people on the payroll that make a lot more money than we do to break these things down and see. Because if there is a cure-all, I don't know that you or I are going to be the ones to see it. And I don't think there is just one thing you can point to. And that's kind of like the fans relegate to, we want that as fans, right? We want one singular thing to point to and say, that's the problem. Because if we can, then we can just, well, you make that one change, and then you start getting those wins. So it's very easy to, for example, it's very easy to blame Connor Ingram and Karel Vejmelka, who obviously we were very, very high on Connor Ingram coming into the season, and he had a great start to the season and then has kind of tapered off. And statistically, Connor Ingram is, if you just look at the statistics, not the wins and losses, just the statistics, not that great. But that's not the whole story. That's not the whole story just to say he's the blame.
Right, and it's not necessarily that he's not been great. Like, I believe it was LA's third goal today, or maybe it was it was either their second or their third. The one that went off of Sergachev's stick. Like, he's in position with the trajectory of that puck to make the save. He's moving into the right position. And Sergachev, he doesn't do anything wrong. He's trying to block a shot, and it glances off of his stick just perfectly up over his right shoulder, and there's just it's just a bad break. It's like nobody's in the wrong there. It's not as if Connor Ingram didn't see that shot, but just a bad bounce. It's just like the one that played off the sidewall a lot earlier. What was that? The Islanders or the Rangers that went off the sidewall?
Yeah,
like,
the Rangers game.
Every once in a while, you're just not going to get the breaks. And right now, it just sort of seems that way. Like, Utah can't get anything past goalies, and they're catching a couple of bad breaks.
And it was also the third goal. The third goal was another one where you had practically 7 guys in front of Ingram, and I doubt he even saw the shot, and certainly didn't see the puck as it sailed over his glove side.
Yeah, and just the things that we've talked about in the past. They need to cut down on penalties. They've done that. They only had 3 tonight. Um, the power play right now needs to get a lot better. And through the third, this I believe Utah went on 2 power plays in the first period, and neither one of them generated even a shot on goal. I believe the third one wasn't bad, and they didn't technically score on that power play because the power play had just expired before Clayton Keller scored. So technically they went 0 for 3, even though that was sort of a power play goal because like LA hadn't got their skater back on the ice really in position yet. So it's not technically a power play goal, but for as good as they've been in cutting down on the penalties, they need to work on that power play offense now.
Yep, absolutely. And well, if you didn't watch the game, before we get too far into breaking it further down, we'll just go over the highlights for you, just to go over this game. If you're just joining us to see the Los Angeles Kings winners tonight, 3-2. No scoring coming out of the first period, so there was a lot of chances and another good first period that Utah kind of controls the pace of play, but still can't, like you've said, Dustin, can't find the back of the net. And then in the second period is kind of when it starts to fall apart. They give up the power play goal. Brant Clark puts LA on the board 1-0. And then a little bit later, Joel Edmondson gets his first of the year, and it's quick 2-0. And Utah looking for answers and looking, unfortunately, like we are heading to another really devastating loss. But shortly thereafter, less than 3 minutes later, Clayton Keller, like you said, Dustin, this might as well have been a power play goal because technically it wasn't. The power play time had expired, but I don't think he came into the zone before Clayton Keller scored. It was a beautiful Clayton Keller passed it back to Mikhail Sergachev. Sergachev back to Clayton Keller, who sniped it from the faceoff circle. Nick Schmaltz also credited with his team leading 8th assist on the year. So that cuts it within 1, and some excitement, right, going into the third period. Into the second intermission would have been devastating to go in again to another third period scoreless, but thank goodness Clayton Keller is there. But then just the rocket, Joel Edmondson, both of his goals this year coming against Utah, scores very early into the third period, just a minute in, and makes it 3-1 Los Angeles. And then halfway through, a great deflection goal. This is what happens when you put pucks on net. Logan Cooley parked right in front of the goalie, gets his stick on it, taps it ever so much, and puts it 5-hole to bring Utah within 1. And Utah pulls their goalie, and a great opportunity. I thought they generated some chances with the goalie pulled, but not enough high danger chances. And even though it was a frenetic end to the game, it ended in a loss 3-2 all the same. Dustin, like you've said, it was a abysmal power play again if you don't count the almost power play goal. 0 for 3 for the Utah Hockey Club, and they again allow another game allowing a penalty kill goal as Los Angeles goes 1-3. Utah gets out hit again, and Utah has more giveaways, but they take the puck away a little bit more. 7-3 in the takeaways, but still giving the puck over. Turnovers still continue to plague this team. Turnovers. And I think it's because they're trying to make one pass too many. But I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I am, Dustin. Do you feel like this team is maybe trying to get too cute with it and just not putting pucks on net? Like that, because that's what I'm saying. And I know, you guys know, I'm the shoot it guy. So am I off base there with we just need to get more pucks on net?
No, and you saw with Logan Cooley's first goal of the season. Like if you put pucks on net, good things happen. Redirects happen. If a goalie makes a save and it plops in front of him, like you can put in the garbage. You saw one, I believe, the last game. scored on Vimelka, where he makes the save with his body, but it just sort of like glances off of him and finds its way into the net. And just as long as you're putting pucks on net, you've got a better chance to score. And in regards to the turnovers, just I do agree they're trying to be too fancy, especially in the neutral zone. They make a lot of cross ice passes trying to move the puck up quickly, and it gets knocked away and stolen in the neutral zone, which can lead to some odd man attacks going the other way, especially, which is really dangerous, to leave your defenseman out like that. But yeah, I think there's some clear and obvious things that the team needs to work on. And I just really want to get back into the win column. I mean, 1 out of the last 6 is just it's not enough. It's not enough winning for me, especially when other teams that I also root for are also not winning. It's just a whole lot of losing going on in my life, and I'm actually quite thankful that I'm sort of I won't say no longer a Jazz fan, but I'm no longer emotionally invested in the Jazz, or else right now I would just be in absolute sports fan hell. So Utah Hockey Club, you're my only hope of saving me from this hellish landscape, this sports purgatory. And I need you to save me.
So it's funny that so you bring up the Utah Jazz, who the Utah Jazz, everybody knows, or at least I guess I don't everybody, but most Utah sports fans know the Jazz are in just complete tank mode, rebuild mode, and this season is not going to be good for the Utah Jazz. But you know that going in, and that makes it a lot easier. It takes some of the edge off. It still sucks, right? Going through I know this is a rebuild season sucks, but the Utah Hockey Club, we were supposed to have put those seasons behind us. That was the last 3 seasons were the rebuild. This was the we're ready to compete season. And now I'm not saying we need to make the playoffs in the 2nd or 3rd week of October, but with the amount of hype, and I mean, there were articles being written maybe too soon about Utah being one of the best teams in the league, after week 2, and now we're kind of back to reality. And as long as that reality doesn't set in that, oh my God, if we crack 80 points, that's a good season, because that still to me says rebuild, or worse, it says even after your rebuild, you're still not good. And that's a bad place for a team to be, right? You want to go through those crappy seasons, those rebuild seasons, and then compete. You can't win a championship every year when you're in that rebuild cycle, but you can compete. And when you're not competing, but you're not rebuilding, you're just a bad team. And that's what feels bad. And Utah's not quite there. Luckily, we're not quite there. But I will say, to Torigny's credit, so Coach Torigny, he did try to shuffle some things up, right? We weren't able to do a post game after the absolute shellacking that Colorado put on us, but what you saw at the end of that game was Coach trying to shift up lines, right? He's just gone through 5 scoreless periods of hockey since the game winner against Boston, and he's got to do something. So he starts to put he's shifting up some of his playmakers. And one of that shift was putting Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, and Clayton Keller together. And he did that again tonight, and it led to Logan Cooley's goal. So, I'm wondering if that's going to be something that we start to see. I predicted on Twitter that maybe Nick Schmaltz would have his spot on the number 1 line taken by Dylan Guenther, and maybe Barrett Hayton's on watch too, that both Logan and Cooley go up to the number 1 line. But there were a lot of line changes, specifically from something that you've stated, Dustin, that you kind of got us excited for, that maybe a lot of casual fans missed. Nick Bjugstad back in the lineup, and that changed a lot of the line combinations. You still have your starting forwards. You still have the Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Barrett Hayton line, which did play very well, with Clayton Keller getting his 5th goal to tie the team lead, Nick Schmaltz getting his team leading assist. So that line is good. But then what you saw is you have the Josh Stone making the jump, and now it's Josh Stone, Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley on line 2, and Nick Bjugstad, Lawson Krause, Matthias Michelli on line 3, which shifts Alex Kerfoot and Jack McBain down to line 4. Now, Jack McBain had been up on line 2 with Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther, right? And when we got our ice to meet you meme locked and loaded, Jack McBain's now on the fourth line grinders, which is actually, I think, a good place for him because he's one of the more physical players on the team in terms of like the traditional hockey physicality of getting the hits, and obviously he's dropped the gloves and stuff. So I think he fits in that fourth line. But just one guy comes back, Nick Bugstad comes back, and it shifts all three lines. The second, third, and fourth lines are all shifted because of his return. And he is a good player, and I think it's going to be exciting watching him return. Yamamoto fans, unfortunately, if you were hoping for Kyler Yamamoto to continue his domination, he's been sent back to the minors, not even scratched. He's been sent back to the minors. I don't think we're going to be seeing him for a couple of weeks.
But the bright side there, he did clear waivers, so he did make it back down to Tucson. So it's not as if that move sent him away to another club. So
yeah, nobody plucked him up. He's still going to be. If you're in Tucson, you're going to get to see Kyler Yamamoto, and he's going to be good for you. Also, a new face that we didn't get to talk about because we didn't talk about the post game of Colorado is Maverick Lamoureux. Has finally come in, and I think come in well on his own and solidified an excellent spot with like you touched on, a very depleted defensive team after Durzi going down. The blue line has just been in shambles, which I would have thought that would have been Sergachev, who was that type of guy. If he goes down, it's all over. But Sean Durzi is really, we have missed him, but it's allowed people to step up. Michael Kesselring has stepped up and filled in his role. And Maverick Lamoureux, big, tall defenseman, you see skating very well, moving the puck very well. He's going to find himself out of position a couple of times. He's going to make some mental mistakes, but he's young and he's got a lot of potential upside. He was drafted in the same year as Logan Cooley was, and now he's making a start that I suspect that will continue to go. So it's just a matter of how the Valimaki and Robert Bortuzzo switch on the blue line comes out, because Robert Bortuzzo back in the lineup didn't take a penalty. Yes, Robert Bortuzzo did not take a penalty this game, so that's a positive. But yeah, a lot of line changes and a lot of trying to shake things up. Also, a guy coming back from injury shakes things up, but also a coach trying to shake his team, and where you might see like a fight try to spark a team, instead Coach T's got line changes trying to spark his team. So fun stuff, and we'll see how much of that moves full time versus game by game.
Yeah, and I like to see it. I like to see that Bear is trying to do something just to change up the mojo, just to find something rather than going with the old like Denzel Washington from Remember the Titans, like just give it time, it works every time. Just like rather than just assuming, okay, this is all eventually going to work out, like trying to find something that'll change up what's happening and try and create a spark. I do like that rather than just sort of sitting on his hands saying, well, I hope this sort of works itself out. So I'm happy. I shouldn't say I'm not happy. I'm optimistic toward the future, but you got to get off the schneid here pretty quickly before the season starts getting out of hand.
Yep, absolutely. There's going to be very little that can happen this season that will shake my love of this hockey team. Just the pure excitement of it even being here in the first place, and we'll continue to see and develop these young guys, because that's the big thing, right? Like we joked about the oldest defensive pairing potentially in the league, but we still have one of the youngest teams in the league, right? There's still so much optimism and hype that can go not just this season, but beyond this season.
And a lot of cap space in case the front office wants to make a move. With now that we know Durzi's going to be out for a very long time, if the front office does decide that they want to make a move, there's plenty of cap space for this team to make some moves.
Yep. Flexibility in that financial aspect, and now finally something that Arizona didn't have, a ownership group that, or rather an owner, not the group, but an owner who's willing to spend that money to win. So we'll see if there are any changes. I don't see anything out on the landscape that's going to happen right now, but we start to get into December and January, and if we're still sitting, right around this 500 mark, or dare I say, unfortunately below 500, we'll start to take a look and see who's available. What kind of talk are we thinking? Because at that point, that would say that things just aren't working, and something is it just waiting for injuries to heal, and I don't know what, but we should have Jersey's cap space available to us, so we'll see how that all works out and shakes out.
Very, very optimistic for the future, so we'll see how this plays out.
Speaking of optimism for the future, I want to leave you with this, fans. If you want to be the most optimistic about the future of hockey, guess who we play on Monday? The San Jose Sharks.
The barely an NHL team?
Yes! So we get a game against the School for the Deaf and Blind, folks. If we lose Monday, it's all hands on deck. Full-on panic mode. Full panic mode.
If we lose to the glorified ECHL Sharks, full-blown panic mode. But a great team to get right against.
Yep, exactly. So fans, if still great seats available to that one, if you want to see as close to an almost sure thing as it can get, Monday against the Sharks is where you want to be. And then who do we play on Thursday? The Calgary Flames. We got the Flames coming into town, and we'll see how that goes. But Monday, watch for it. Dustin, we're getting excited for the next game. Why don't you got any closing thoughts for the fans before we get on out of here?
LWF. That's all I have to say right now.
LWF and poop times 2, guys. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Two Line Pass podcast as we bring you the post-game show for your Utah Hockey Club falling 2-3 against the Los Angeles Kings. Back at home Monday against the San Jose Sharks. Guys, go enjoy the football game, or enjoy the football game you were watching before. Thanks so much for listening, and you guys have a great night. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Two Line Pass podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at the Two Line Pass. You can follow Dustin at Highlights Ute. You can follow Randon at TLP Randon, and Ryan at Carnes Ryan 0420. During the off-season, new episodes of the podcast drop every Wednesday with bonus episodes throughout. And during the season, we will have our weekly show plus game day episodes so you don't miss a minute of the action.